So after custom cutting all these pieces, we're ready to stick them down. We've also spent a lot of time putting packers underneath to get things to the right height. So I'm going to start with this one and work our way over, placing the packers in the same pattern, so hopefully I'll get them roughly back in the same spot when we get the mud on here.
You come and go like a monsoon rain. You hide and show like a lightning bolt. You have it all.
In this episode, we're going to finish the bricklets we've been putting on the side of the staircase foundation. My system in this project has been to allow certain segments to dry and set up solidly before we move on to the next section. This is really important so we don't bump loose any of the stones before the tile cement's had time to harden. My plan is to get most of the bricks secured in place on the side of the concrete platform. It's important for me to get this first brick in exactly the right position. I'll be connecting the vertical pieces for the last step to this piece of stone later, and I want to have as small a gap as possible. As I'm sticking the rest of these bricklets onto our concrete foundation, I'm double checking with my level to make sure we've got a really vertical alignment. I'm not sticking the bricks all the way to the end of the wall, as I want these bricks to set in place before we fiddle around with the corner pieces. After washing off any tile cement that ended up in the wrong places, I give the entire area a full hose down in preparation for us setting up for the final step layout. I need to map out the top of the step or the landing before we do the pieces on the front of the step, as they all align together. I'm using where the edge of the wooden deck meets our concrete foundation as a guide to how I want to lay the stones out on the top. It helps to have the measurements written out where I'm going to be laying the stone for easy reference later. I select and cut the stones to size and start sticking them onto the step. I wanted to be able to stick these pieces on whilst the previous pieces were still a little soft, in case we needed to adjust the very end piece to make a really nice corner join. After a little clean up with our wet sponge and my little helper Gus, we move on to finishing off this top course by adding the corner pieces we left out earlier.
Hey darling, can I tell you what's been on my mind? Sick and tired of the 9 to 5 in the city life. Hey darling, we could get out of town, see the beautiful world around, wanna see it now. Pack our bags and get in that car, leave a little note and we'll drive real far. Let's get out, we can leave this city, let's drive to the open air. Yeah, the countryside is so pretty, with the wind blowing in your hair. We can look back someday, baby, don't you understand that we only get one life? I wanna make it count, honey, come on now and take my hand.
While the tile cement sets up on the staircase, we're going to move our attention back to the pathway. I already have some stones selected and cut that fit our formula for having 3 stones across the pathway. One of the key parts of this process is managing how much tile cement we have under the stone. Here I'm using 5mm packers to get the stone to the right height. I'm going to need slightly more than 5mm of tile cement to create a good contact between the stone and the concrete. On this stone, I'm adding a little extra cement to make sure it's sitting higher than the packers. I want to put the stone in place so I can feel the tile cement squishing out, so I know I've got a good contact. I clean up any excess tile cement off these stones whilst it's still soft, before we move on to cutting and fitting an extra stone to use up our excess tile cement.
We can look back someday, baby, don't you understand that we only get one life? I wanna make it count, honey, come on now and take my hand. what's been on my mind. Sick and tired of the 9 to 5 in the city life. Hey darling, we could get out of town, see the beautiful world around, wanna see it now.
I was going to lay a couple more stones with the leftover cement. We're getting rained off, so it's enough for today. Come back tomorrow.
Leave a little note and we'll drive real far. Let's get out, we can leave this city.
So last week we completed laying all the stones on the uprights. So today we're going to be sticking the pieces on top, which will finish off this whole staircase element. As we use up our stone, I pick up batches on my trailer and bring them in. And as you can see today, we're starting to get quite depleted. So I picked up a batch of stone, we'll unload that, lay it out. Then I'll have material for doing the top of this staircase.
Hey darling, I love it when it's me and you, on the road with a couple of tunes in a car for two. Hey darling, you know we're gonna have a really good time, driving in the middle of the night when the stars are bright.
I'm doing my standard morning wash down and scrubbing off any excess tile cement I missed yesterday when we laid these pieces. The towels I lay out to work on are really important for avoiding any scratches or stains on the stones we've already laid. I try and clean most of the tile cement off as we're laying them. It can be hard to get the pieces on the inside corners whilst the tiles are still wet, because if you scrub them too hard you'd push them out of alignment. So it's more effective to let them set up overnight, and the following morning we can scrape and scrub them a lot harder. I need to give our stair platform a thorough scraping to remove any bumps that might misalign the stones we're going to lay on top. I'm double checking the measurements for the size of stones we're going to need to cover this area. And then I take a look at the new stones I laid out to pick the appropriate ones. We're looking for extra flat, extra nice stones. This is a feature area of our structure, so it's worth taking our time to select the right ones.
Pack our bags and get in that car. Leave a little note and we'll drive real far. Let's get out, we can leave this city.
Our stones on the top step and platform are going to require a little expansion gap around the edge next to the house and the edges next to the deck. This is going to give the different materials room to expand and contract without causing any cracks in our stone. I'm using 10mm packers to set a consistent gap around the whole edge of the stone.
Hey darling, I love it when it's me and you, on the road with a couple of tunes in a car for two. Hey darling, you know we're gonna have a really good time, driving in the middle of the night when the stars are bright. Pack our bags and get in that car. Leave a little note and we'll drive real far. Let's get out, we can leave this city. Let's drive to the open air. Yeah, the countryside is so pretty, with the wind blowing in your hair.
So after custom cutting all these pieces, we're ready to stick them down. We've also spent a lot of time putting packers underneath to get things to the right height. So I'm going to start with this one and work our way over. I'm going to leave this one in place because I want to sort of use it to match the height. Placing the packers in the same pattern, so hopefully I'll get them roughly back in the same spot when we get the mud on here.
Sick and tired of the 9 to 5 in the city life. Hey darling, we could get out of town, see the beautiful world around, wanna see it now. Pack our bags and get in that get out, we can leave this city. Let's drive to the open air. Yeah, the countryside is so pretty, with the wind blowing in your hair. We can look back someday, baby, don't you understand?
I'll let the pieces on the final step set up as I return to the continuation of the pathway section. One of the reasons it's important to let the stones set up solidly before adding another batch is in the process of designing as we go. I often want to lay a piece of stone over the previously laid stones to get an idea how it's going to fit in place. In keeping with our formula of mixing different sized stones, here I'm adding a really large one next to two previously laid medium-sized ones. This is what's going to create a harmonious pattern in the pathway. When the large stone is cut and fit in place, I bridge the gap between the two large stones with a smaller one. We can see here how there's a design rhythm forming in our pathway that we're going to try and keep consistent throughout the rest of the length. So to keep this design formula going, I'm going to add a really large one in the center and then custom cut medium to small pieces to fit around it. As the pathway grows in length, I approach my first expansion joint. This requires a little careful thought to make it work correctly. I need the expansion joint in the concrete to line up with the edges of the stones. This way, when the expansion joint possibly moves in the future, it won't crack any of the stones. To help hide this seam that we need in the pathway for engineering purposes, I laid the stones out with seams that run all the way across in other areas to help this seam blend in and not stick out. The other courses I put in the pathway are at a slightly different angle to also help break the pattern up, so this becomes an invisible part of the pathway.
Let's get out, we can leave this city. Let's drive to the open air. Yeah, the countryside is so pretty, with the wind blowing in your hair. We can look back someday, baby, don't you understand that we only get one life? I wanna make it count, honey. Come on now and take my hand. Hey, darling, I love it when it's me and you on the road with a couple of tunes in a car for two. Hey, darling, you know we're gonna have a really good time, driving in the middle of the night when the stars are bright.
With all the stones cut to fit up to our expansion joint, I now cement them in place.
Leave a little note and we'll drive real far. Let's get out, we can leave this city.
Part of the practical aspect of our stone design layout is having these large ones in the middle and keeping the smaller stones on the side. This helps create a practical and smooth pathway. After laying our stones up to the expansion joint, I still have some ceramicrete left over, so I'll stick a couple more stones in to finish off this session.
Hey, darling, can I tell you what's been on my mind? Sick and tired of the 9 to 5 in the city light.
Join me in the next episode as we continue the process of laying out our sandstone.
See the beautiful world around, wanna see it now. Pack our bags and get in that car. Leave a little note and we'll drive real far.
Thanks for joining me this week on my YouTube channel. Check the link below, and while you're at it, hit the subscribe button or make a comment so I can help you with your future construction solutions. And don't forget to follow our channel for more ideas and how-to tips for home and garden projects.